All right, so you wanted to dive into the first 90 days, huh? Well, let's do it. It's all about stepping into a new leadership role and
making those first 3 months really count.
yeah, you know that feeling.
Yeah.
When it's exciting and a little scary all at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. It's a make or break period.
And Michael Watkins, he's like the guru of leadership transitions, right?
Yeah.
He lays out exactly why those 90 days are so crucial.
He does. He really nails it.
So we'll get into all that good stuff, the why, the how, and maybe even some stories to bring it all to life.
Some real world examples to see how these strategies play out in the real world. Because, you know, it's one thing to read about it, but it's another thing to actually see it in action.
Exactly. And the first 90 days, it's not just some vague advice, is it?
No, not at all. It's actually super practical. It's a framework you can use right away.
I like that. Speaking of practical, the book talks about this manager who really focused on getting to know their team first. Made a big difference, right?
Huge difference.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. When you walk into a new role, it's tempting to just jump right into tasks.
Oh, yeah. Let's get things done.
But this manager, they took a different approach. They prioritized relationships, understanding their team's strengths and weaknesses, how everyone interacted. And guess what? It created a much more cohesive and productive environment.
It's like laying the foundation before you start building.
Exactly, you got it. And Watkins, he really drives home this idea of understanding your context, like holistically.
Holistically, yeah, that's a good word for it.
Yeah.
It's more than just tasks, it's the whole picture.
It's the big picture. It's like, okay, what's the culture like here? What challenges are already brewing? How do people actually communicate with each other? You know, it's all those unspoken things.
Stuff you don't see in the job description.
Right. And once you get that, then you can start making smart decisions.
Makes sense. There's this other example in the book, too, about a leader who spent a lot of time just observing before making any changes. Isn't there a risk of seeming, I don't know, passive if you're just watching?
Yeah, that's a common worry. You know, shouldn't a leader take charge right away? But here's the thing. Sometimes the best action you can take is to simply observe. Like, really pay attention to what's going on.
So this leader, they were gathering intel.
Exactly. By taking the time to understand the team's dynamics, the challenges they were facing, they were actually able to make much more informed and impactful decisions later on.
So it's about choosing the right moment to act.
Exactly. Patience, my friend. Patience. It's a virtue, especially in those first 90 days. But I get it. It can feel overwhelming.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, where do I even start?
Well, Watkins has got you covered.
Okay.
He talks about creating this detailed 90-day plan.
Ooh, a plan. I like it.
And it's not just a to-do list, okay? It's more like a strategic roadmap. It helps you define your goals, set your priorities, and stay focused amidst all the chaos.
Like a compass.
Yeah, exactly. A compass to keep you on track. Because trust me, those first 90 days can be a whirlwind.
Oh, I believe it. I remember starting new jobs and feeling totally lost. A plan would have been amazing.
Absolutely. And within that plan, Watkins talks about getting some quick wins under your belt.
Quick wins. Tell me more.
All right, so picture this. A newly appointed sales director notices their team is drowning in admin work, right?
No time for actual selling.
Right, so they find this simple software solution to automate all that stuff.
Genius.
It frees up the team's time, sales go up, everyone's happy, boom, quick win. It shows competence, makes a tangible impact, and guess what else?
What's that?
It boosts morale. It creates momentum. It shows the team you're not just there to learn, you're there to lead.
Lead and deliver. I like it. But what about the tough stuff? Transitions can be pretty stressful.
Oh, they are. No doubt about it. And Watkins, he's very real about that. He talks about managing stress, taking care of yourself.
So it's not all about go, go, go.
Nope. You gotta recharge. Exercise, mindfulness, sleep, all those things matter.
It's like you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. You gotta fill yourself up first so you can show up as your best self for yourself and for your team.
You know, this is all making a lot of sense, even for someone who's not like in a big leadership role right now.
That's the beauty of it, honestly. While the first 90 days is written for leaders, the principles apply to anyone going through a transition.
Any kind of change, big or small.
You got it. Starting a new job, moving to a new city, whatever it is. Planning, understanding your environment, building relationships, self-care. It all matters.
So we're all leaders in our own way, right?
In a way, yeah, we are.
And speaking of leadership, one thing that really stood out to me in the book was the emphasis on feedback. How does that fit into the whole 90-day plan?
It's essential. Think of feedback as your course correction, your reality check.
So you're not just setting a plan and blindly following it.
Nope. You're constantly getting input, adjusting as you go. Watkins encourages leaders to seek feedback from all sides, peers, team members, even your boss.
So it's about being open to learning and refining your approach.
Absolutely. It shows humility, a willingness to learn. And that builds trust with your team.
It's like, okay, I have a plan, but I'm also open to changing it based on what I learn along the way.
You got it. You're not afraid to admit when you're wrong and make adjustments. And that's powerful.
It is. The book gives an example of a leader who did weekly check-ins with their team to get feedback. What kind of impact did that have?
Well, think about it. Regular check-ins, they foster open communication. They allow for real-time course correction.
Like if you're hiking through uncharted territory, you want to make sure you're still on the right path.
Exactly. And those check-ins, they give you the opportunity to assess progress, identify obstacles, maybe even tweak the route a little bit.
So it's not just about gathering information, it's about creating a culture of open communication.
Yeah, it's about collaboration. And that's key for success, not just in those first 90 days, but for the long haul too.
This is all so insightful. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface of the first 90 days, though. So much to unpack. Before we keep going, what are some of the things that have stood out to you so far? What's resonating with your own experiences? We'd love to hear your thoughts. We've been talking about this whole feedback thing and adapting and all that, but what about those challenges that just seem to pop up out of nowhere? You know, those curveballs.
Oh, yeah, those unexpected twists and turns. Watkins actually talks about that quite a bit.
He does. And one of the big ones he mentions is cultural differences, right? Like every organization has its own vibe.
It's true. Every workplace has its own unique culture, its own way of doing things.
Exactly. And that can be a real challenge for a new leader, especially in today's global world.
Absolutely. It's like stepping into a different country sometimes.
Right. So how do you navigate that? Like, what are some of the key things that shape an organization's culture?
Well, you've got everything from communication styles, how people talk to each other, to decision-making processes, like who makes the calls and how.
And then there's the whole hierarchy thing, right? Like, is it super formal or more relaxed?
Yeah, and then you've got attitudes towards risk-taking. Some places are all about innovation, while others play it safe. And Watkins, he talks about this idea of cultural intelligence. It's not just about being aware of the differences, it's about really understanding the values, beliefs, and behaviors that drive those differences.
It's like you can't just read a travel guide, you got to immerse yourself in the culture, right?
Exactly. You got to experience it firsthand. And when it comes to leadership, it means adapting your style to fit the existing environment.
So it's not about coming in and trying to change everything overnight.
Not at all. Watkins uses this great analogy. He says, trying to force change without considering the cultural context is like trying to plant a tropical flower in the Arctic tundra.
Ooh, I like that. It just wouldn't work, would it?
Nope. You got to find a way to make your approach work within the existing ecosystem.
So it's more about evolution than revolution.
I like that. Yeah, it's about understanding the nuances and finding ways to leverage those differences to create something even better.
And that ties in nicely with all the talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion these days, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely. Creating a truly inclusive workplace means valuing and respecting those cultural differences. It's about making everyone feel like they belong.
And that leads to a more dynamic and innovative environment, right?
Exactly. When people feel comfortable being themselves, they're more likely to share their ideas and contribute their unique talents.
Makes sense. One thing that struck me about the first 90 days is how Watkins emphasizes that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to leadership. He gives you a framework, but he also stresses the need for flexibility.
He does. It's like he gives you a toolbox full of different tools, but it's up to you to choose the right tool for the job.
And to know how to use it.
Exactly. And that's where experience and self-awareness come in. And continuous learning, too. Watkins is big on that.
So even seasoned leaders are always learning.
Always. It's an ongoing process. And part of that is being open to feedback, seeking out different perspectives, being willing to admit when you're wrong.
Sounds like humility plays a big role.
It does. Humility allows you to acknowledge your limitations, ask for help when you need it, and learn from your mistakes. And that builds trust, which is essential for any leader.
It's funny, we often talk about these qualities, cultural intelligence, adaptability, humility, as soft skills, but they're not soft at all, are they?
Not at all. Maybe we should call them essential skills instead.
I like that. Essential skills for effective leadership. And speaking of leadership, Watkins doesn't just focus on the individual leader's transition, right? He talks about setting the stage for the whole team's success.
Right. It's about creating a shared vision, making sure everyone's on the same page, setting clear goals, and empowering team members to do their best work.
It's like you're not just leading yourself, you're leading a group of people.
Exactly. And that requires a different skill set. It's about collaboration, communication, and creating an environment where everyone can thrive.
So it's more about we than me.
Yes. Watkins talks about the importance of harnessing the collective intelligence and creativity of the team. It's not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about creating a space where everyone can contribute their best ideas.
And that requires effective communication, right?
Absolutely. Watkins stresses the need to communicate clearly, frequently, and authentically, keeping everyone informed, providing regular feedback, being transparent about your decisions. Communication is the glue that holds everything together.
We've talked a lot about the 90-day plan, but what about after those 90 days? Like, how do you keep that momentum going?
Well, Watkins talks about the importance of continuous improvement. Never stop learning, never stop growing. Leadership is a journey, not a destination. It's about embracing that journey and staying connected to your purpose.
And your values.
Exactly. Even when things get tough. Because there will be challenges. But if you stay true to your vision and your values, you'll be able to navigate those challenges and continue to grow as a leader.
This has been such an insightful conversation. I feel like I've learned so much about leadership transitions. What are some of the things that have stood out to you?
For me, it's really about the importance of those essential skills. Cultural intelligence, adaptability, humility. Those are the things that make a real difference.
And they're skills that we can all develop, right?
Absolutely. No matter where we are in our careers, we can all strive to become more effective leaders.
And that's a great segue into our next topic, which is all about putting those skills into practice. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground with the first 90 days, but I'm really curious about this whole 90-day plan thing. Like, what does that actually look like? Can we break it down a bit?
Absolutely. Watkins, he actually suggests dividing it into 4 phases, each with its own focus and priorities.
4 phases. Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the first one all about?
The first one is preparation. It's all about gathering intel, learning as much as you can about your new role, the organization, the whole shebang.
So like doing your research. Homework before the first day of school.
Exactly. You want to hit the ground running, you got to be prepared.
Makes sense. What about phase 2?
Phase 2 is all about accelerating your learning, immersing yourself in the new environment, building those relationships, soaking up as much information as you can.
Like a sponge.
Yes, you're absorbing everything. Getting a deep understanding of the organization, the team, the challenges you're going to be facing.
Okay, sponge mode activated. What comes next?
Phase 3 is where you start putting all that learning into action. You're adapting your approach, experimenting with different strategies, refining your leadership style based on feedback and experience.
So it's not about being rigid, it's about being flexible.
Exactly. Remember, there's no one-size-fits-all approach to leadership. You got to be willing to adapt and evolve based on what you're learning.
And the final phase, the grand finale.
Phase 4 is execution. You're taking everything you've learned, your adapted approach, those relationships you've built, and you're using them to create a high-performing team and achieve some real tangible results.
Sounds pretty comprehensive, like a recipe for success. But I'm guessing it's not always a smooth ride, is it?
Yeah.
What are some of the common traps people fall into during these transitions?
Oh yeah, there are definitely some pitfalls to watch out for. Watkins talks about a few of them. One of the big ones is trying to do too much too soon. New leaders, they often feel this pressure to prove themselves quickly.
Makes sense. You want to make a good impression.
Right. But that can lead to taking on too many initiatives, making changes too abruptly, and it can backfire.
You got to pace yourself.
Exactly. Prioritize your efforts, build momentum gradually. Don't try to boil the ocean all at once.
And I think he also mentioned something about isolating yourself, right?
Yeah, that's another common trap. Leaders can sometimes retreat into their offices, trying to figure everything out on their own. But leadership, it's not a solo sport. You need to reach out, connect with people, get input, collaborate.
You get to build those relationships.
Exactly. And one final pitfall I think is worth mentioning is failing to manage your energy. Transitions, they're demanding both physically and emotionally.
It's a lot to handle.
It is. And it's crucial to prioritize your well-being, get enough rest, recharge your batteries. Otherwise, you're going to burn out.
And that helps no one.
Nope. Taking care of yourself, it's not selfish, it's essential. You got to be at your best to lead effectively.
Well, this has been an amazing deep dive into the first 90 days.
Yeah.
I feel like I've gained so much insight into leadership transitions. It's not just about landing the new role, it's about what you do in those first 3 months and beyond.
And it's something that we can all learn from, whether we're in a formal leadership position or not. These principles, they apply to any kind of transition, any kind of change.
It's a reminder that we're all on a journey of growth and development, and with the right mindset and strategies, we can navigate those changes successfully and achieve our full potential.
Well said.
If you're ready to embark on your own deep dive into the first 90 days, we highly recommend picking up a copy. And if you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe to our channel, Book Talks Wisdom, for more insightful book discussions like this one. We'll be back soon with another episode decoding the wisdom of the world's most impactful books. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep leading.